Hi, thanks for coming. Don and I are really happy you're here. I'm Stephanie. And when I'm not doing a live report on your Facebook, we are seasonal residents. We live in Virginia Beach when we're not here, and we're glad to be here. And we follow a lot what's going on Facebook and in Team Reach, and we try to stay connected on emails, etc. But during this time when there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm around the campaign, and they asked if I would host, I'm thinking, yeah, I haven't even heard some of the views as well. So I'm happy to have everybody here. Our goal today is to focus our questions on Lewis and Troy, what they will bring to the table. And if you have any issues that are unrelated to Lewis and Troy, this is just not the space for that. So we'll just really have an opportunity to hear more about Lewis and Troy. And if you have anything else in that, we'll do that in another setting, but not here today. So welcome and thanks for coming.
Definitely thanks to Don and Stephanie for doing this. I told Stephanie early on, I wanted her to interview me with a banana. It was like a normal rally. This is a little bit more formal. And this is the first one where we received very specific instructions on how we were to run this thing. Stephanie, she runs things. So we've been asked to do introductions and kind of share a little bit about ourselves and what we're focused on. So I'll let Lewis go first.
Yeah, so in introduction, I'll try and answer some of the questions that I think you'll ask, is why my background relates to the board positions that we're talking about. I was born in Baltimore. Just to give you a little bit of background, I've been married 35 years. I have 2 sons and 1 dog who is sick right now, which is why Andrew is not here. I've lived in Maryland my whole life. And after COVID, Andrew and I started looking around for places to live, or second homes, actually. And we started going around Florida. This was actually the first community we looked at. We actually fell in love with it, but we thought it was prudent to continue around. So for another year, we looked around, and then we ended up coming back here and buying a house. Moved in about 2 years ago, Thanksgiving. And the first week after we moved in, we decided this is where we're going to live. She was still working. I'm retired. And she was able to work from here for the first year before she finally retired. So that's how we made it here. We did fall in love with the community, the pickleball, the tennis, the other things that are going on here, the active lifestyle. It's crazy how many of us are running for sports, and how many of us are following sports too. Anyway, after our oldest son just graduated, and we sold our house, and we have no place to go back there. So this is home. My background is in computer science. It doesn't really relate to this, but I started my career in the early 80s at NASA. So I did a lot of government work. I was in college. I started running programs for the team I was on. And once I left there in the commercial world, I founded a company in '95. Okay, I sold it in 2008. I continued to run that until 2018 was when I retired. So about that. So with the company I founded, it was for service industry. So every major appliance and everything that you have in your house that can break, all the service guys that come to your house, I connected them to the manufacturers of that equipment. The software had a bunch of components to it. That's not the important part. The important part is I also run customer service for it. So I had to build a customer service team. So all the service guys that didn't know how to use a computer at the time, this was in the 90s, I had to train them. I had to train my people to train them, answer phone calls, provide them information, and make sure we responded to them on time. Additionally, I had my clients that I had to respond to. So systems go out, system changes, things don't work. We had SLAs in our contracts with them, so we built in lots of SLAs and transparency. So when someone asked a question, they knew what the question was, they knew what the time for response was. We were measured on that, and we got ding for it, or we got performance bonuses for that as well. So we created strong contracts with our clients, and we measured ourselves against those. And so that's when some people have asked what we'll do here. Is one of the things I wanted to do is say, this is what the board will do. This is what our goals are, and measure ourselves and ask you how we're doing as well. Additionally with that, so that was sort of relating to transparency. Most of my team that I started in '95, the ones that haven't retired, are still there. So I have long-standing employees. I have employees, I've seen their kids born, I've seen kids get married. I still talk to them, and they still have reunions. So, and that was probably, it's the core group. There's periphery people like developers and things like that, but all my core team are still there. And that's been over 20 years. And, so I like to build a strong team, and I think I've done a good job of that. And let's see what else with that. With all my clients, I negotiate contracts. So clients such as Home Depot, Lowe's, Whirlpool, GE, Sub-Zero, Wolf, all those companies were my clients. So I did negotiate contracts with them where I had to measure our team's performance. And when I talk about that, it's down to the millisecond. So I had to track every single time that something happened and report on that. We did a couple million transactions a day. They had to happen in a certain period of time, and I had to make sure that they could see that anytime they asked. Most of the times, well, let me just go back. With those contracts, most of them are still clients. Okay, so clients that I've had for over 20 years as well, not just employees, but clients. And that's because we looked for things that were common. We made contracts that were beneficial to both parties. I understood their needs, they understood our needs, and we got something out of it. And then lastly, communications. So that was sort of partly about that with the clients and being transparent with them. Let's see if I have anything else. Nope, I think that's probably it. I would just say that while software doesn't seem like it adds up, I did run the teams. I ran marketing, I ran advertising, I ran sales, I ran development, and I listened to clients and had to communicate technical needs into business processes and help train with teams. So I think I can do a lot for the board here in some role.
You didn't work with Allison, did you?
No, I don't.
So, all right, well, thank you, Louis. So again, I think most of you probably know my campaign manager, which is my wife, Lisa, back there. So everybody seems to know her a lot more than me, but my name's Troy Crawford. We moved into the community about 3 years ago. We're here full time. We moved from Ohio, but we've lived kind of all over the country. I've spent my entire career in the insurance industry, property and casualty, over 30 years. I currently am Chief Underwriting Officer for American Coastal Insurance Company, which is headquartered up in St. Petersburg. It happens to be the #1 writer of HOAs and condo associations in the state of Florida. We're a property insurer, which is always fun to be a property insurer in Florida during hurricane season, but we came out pretty good this year, so that's good. And so, I work from home on about 3 days a week, and sometimes I travel up to St. Pete during the early part of the week there for a couple of days. It's kind of how we operate. We have 3 adult children. One lives in Burlington, is married to Vermont, so lives up in northern Vermont. We have one that actually just moved to St. Petersburg from Chicago, and our daughter just moved to Naples here last year. So she lives down by the beach, and we get to see her often. So that's a little bit about me and my family and background. Why I'm running. So when we came down 3 years ago, we had been coming down for Christmases and extended vacations, kind of feeling out where we wanted to, retire, or where we wanted to live longer term. But we still thought we were 2, 3, 4 years away from actually buying a place down here. And then we had friends that moved into Valencia, Bonita, and we went and spent the day with them. And we're like, oh my God, this is exactly, we're not big golfers, we're big into pickleball. I said, this is exactly what we're looking for. So we ended up coming down and touring the Naples site. Andre is our salesperson, and just fell in love with the place. And so we expedited that timeline. We ended up moving in, like I said, 3 years ago. And initially we were going to do a second home, but just like Lewis, we're like, the heck with that, we're here. So we ended up moving in full time. Why am I running for the board, or why am I doing this? I had no intention of running for the board, no plans to do it. And last year, when the initial board, ran and was voted in, they asked for volunteers to serve on the various committees. And so I went ahead and volunteered to serve on the finance committee. They accepted that, and I started with that, actually with Mark Goldenberg there in the back and Greg Kassler. And so we started working on the finance committee. So we got to see a little bit behind the scenes of how things were operating. We got to interact with Marion and Dave behind the scenes as they were negotiating the contracts, as they were outlining the priorities for the community. And I thought they were really doing a really good job. Especially Marion was really focused on the contracts, and were the contracts written in a way that were beneficial to Valencia Trails. And so that's what she spent a lot of time on. I'll let Marion run her own campaign. But when it came up for time for the community that was going to run this time, I did notice that a lot of people were running against the board. And it just didn't feel like they were seeing what I was seeing. So I wanted to run to provide an option to make sure that we had an option that was running really to help the board, because I do think 3 people is not enough. They needed more people, more reach. And so I think that's what 5 board members can give them. And the other thing is I am very focused on maintaining the style of living that we have. I think we bought this in this community because of the quality of the amenities, the quality of the restaurant, the quality of the pools. And I want to make sure that we're maintaining that quality. But at the same time, I want to make sure we're doing it in a financially responsible manner. Because of the work that I've done through my job, I've had to interact with a lot of HOAs, the finances of HOAs, and I can see a poorly run HOA is not good for the community. It's going to go down real quick. So I feel that I can make sure that I'm helping, drive the community in a good financial position while making sure that we maintain the amenities that we have. So that's kind of my main focus. So I think with that, we're open to questions. So please let us know what's on your mind.
In the coming term, what contracts do you anticipate are going to be, or have to be renewed because they're expiring? Or something else you would say? Oh, what are the major issues we have to address almost immediately then?
All right, so two questions there. I would say the immediate issues that are before us, I would say are twofold. One, we have to establish a reserve fund. We have to balance the budget for the 2026 cycle, and we have to determine what changes, if any, I believe there will be some, what changes are required to our dues to make that happen. So I think that is the number one objective. I hoped when Mark and I were early on this, I think we had hoped from the finance committee perspective that we were going to have that budget done before the annual meeting. But with the shift to ICON from GRS, which I think was the right decision, that has delayed things. So I think it's going to be pretty much right at the annual meeting is when we have everything finalized to move forward with that. But I think that's probably the biggest key objective for us right now. The other one is just the community engagement. It's just been horrible. And so I think that the new board, whichever 5 are elected, are going to have to quickly come together and figure out how to make sure that we're getting back to the peaceful, fun community that we were, I think, before the elections. So I think those are the 2 big ones. I'll come back to your question on the contract. I want Lewis to answer.
Yeah, so from the contracts, we have to find out where we are with Gather and the extension, right? So theoretically, that'll be done before the new board takes over. But if it's not, that's probably the first one that needs to take place, right? In terms of getting things that need to be done, we need to figure out the results of the survey so we can get the tennis courts and the bocce courts back in place, right? And it's not just saying, I don't want to, Jeff, wherever you are, I know that they're in bad shape. We need to see the results so we figure out how to fund them and what to do. And there's some options I think that we've heard. We have to look into once we see how much money we have. I think the pool contracts as well. I'm not sure if anybody of you looked at. Someone's been complaining about the pool to the amenities committee. The temperatures are going up, the temperatures are going down, pumps are failing, pumps are not failing. We looked at the contract. If you look at the services provided, it says service pool. The same company, also does the fountain up front. It says service fountain. Now, that was done before us. It's an annually recurring contract, so there's ways to define what that should be. So I do think that needs to be done. I think the other thing I would say is there's lots of results coming in right now from the survey, and positive results. Actually, that's the one thing that I would say is about 80% of the survey results that have come in is positive. So we have quite a bit to build upon as opposed to retail. And I think that's something we should focus on, is building upon what we have and what's in place now. A very good starting point.
Yes. First, I want to thank you both for giving your time and talents to the Finance Committee, to the Amenities Committee. As a resident, I'm very appreciative for anyone who volunteers for any of these roles. Should you be fortunate to be elected to the 26th board, how would you envision the process for changing out a current vendor, such as a landscaping company? Specifically, would the negotiation and decision-making process remain with the president as it stands today?
So, excuse me. One is, I think the way it works, whether or not the negotiations stand with the president today, I believe the decision is made by everybody, right? So the president may negotiate it, but the terms and conditions are all agreed upon, all the board members. I think that given an expanded role, I think it depends upon the contract, right? There may be someone who has better expertise, or maybe bringing the landscape committee to help with negotiating terms and conditions to get more feedback into that. Either way, it's going to be all the members of the board. In this case, it'd be 5 deciding what the final results are of any contract. I can see where I would be better off negotiating with a vendor for appliances and for services provided to the community. There may be someone else who has talents associated with landscaping or things like that. So I think we should leverage the talents of different people. We'll have a broader group of people to do so.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it all comes down to who is in the best position to do that. I would say that there's been a lot of questions around that topic, and I never saw it the way that I think some people saw it, as the board was delegating the authority to one person.
Isn't that how it was stated, though? I'm sorry to interrupt.
I actually think in the board meeting it was stated, it was stated that way, but I don't think that's the way it was intended.
Okay.
My impression was that the responsibility is to do negotiations, the initial negotiations, and that's their focus. But it's the board's decision to make that together. So I think, I remember hearing those words. I don't think that's the intention, and I don't think that's the execution either, so. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I think there was another hand.
I'd like to know more about the reserve fund, your approach to a reserve fund.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd like to know more about your approach to a
Yeah, it's evolving because I'm learning more as we go. This is my first time on an HOA, so I'll be upfront with that. So I'm learning as I go on some of these topics. But I was under the impression originally, as we've been waiting for the reserve study, and I think the reserve study is finally almost there. But there's been some back and forth on it. But the engineer that's doing reserve study is very, very good engineering firm. It's called Epic. They've been very thorough. I think it's like 160 pages or more of a reserve study. They've got every mechanical aspect, anything that would be included in the reserve fund scope. And I was under the impression originally that we were going to have to fund it with a large dollar amount up front to let it accrue and grow over time. The way that they're recommending it, and I think partly because we're a brand new community and most of our infrastructure is a long ways away from needing replacing, thankfully. The way that they're recommending this is that we fund it annually and let it grow over the time. And so right now, and this is not a final number because I'm not seeing the final number, but I've heard that that number is right around $450,000 a year. So by funding $450,000 a year every year indefinitely, we will grow that reserve fund to millions of dollars in X number of years when we need it to start paying for other things. And so the reserve fund needs to be funded if we fund it. And right now, I believe the recommendation that the Finance Committee and myself would be making to the board would be to fund it as a portion of your dues. So we would have a portion of whatever your monthly, quarterly dues would be designated to the reserve fund. That would be in a separate bank account. It would be completely separate from the rest of the funds, but we wouldn't be funding it separately. We'd be funding it at the same time we'd pay the rest of the dues. That makes sense to me. And it also means there's going to be less of a financial impact to the residents right up front, versus if we were trying to fund, say we wanted $1 million reserve fund next year to let it grow, we would do 3 special assessments over 3 years, something like that. So long story short is I believe that's how we're going to be able to do the reserve fund. I think that makes sense. We'll be able to grow it over time. And then we'll also want to make sure we understand what the operating budget needs to be next year, taking into consideration a lot of the contract changes that we've talked about, some good, some increased spend in other areas, to make sure that we have that covered for 2026 as well. So,
I have one other
Yeah.
in mind. I'm curious about both of your views on overseeing this community about self-managing or hiring, as we currently are hired a property manager. What is your view about self-management versus paying someone to do it?
I have an opinion, but I always let him take it.
So self-managing versus using like Icon or something
Yeah,
like that?
hiring someone to manage the community.
I actually am more in favor of using a third party to do it for us. I think it separates the individual desires of the community, of each individual that's running it, versus and having an expert in that industry take care of it. Like Ellen came by and I just met with their court engineer the other day. And we got such a different perspective on the courts because of their experience in all these different communities. So I think it's one of the areas. I would hate to put all the infrastructure in place that we would have to put in place if we had to hire our own employees. So I don't know if we want to do that. I mean, I personally don't want to do that.
So I've been on the board officially now for like 10 days, I think. So I'm an expert on all of that. But when Peter decided to leave the board, they asked me to, or they voted me to step in allegedly to the treasurer role. So I'm doing that right now. So I've been able to see in the last 10 days a lot more of the inner workings. I will say that before that, I would have said that I'm still in favor of a management company doing it. Now I'm even more so in that camp. And just to give you one example, I just got yesterday a 16-page report that Icon, they have a plan expert, agricultural expert on staff. And that person, Dr. J is his nickname, but he's a PhD. He actually spent a couple days going through every street, the bocce courts, the tennis courts, not looking at the bocce courts and the tennis courts, but the surrounding vegetation. And he came back with a 16-page report on oleander, this tree, at this house. He found one of the things I found, I'm not a plant guy, but he said that some of these oak trees, they're pruning them and it's called the lollipop effect. And they're pruning them too much up the top and it's becoming top heavy. And so he has all of these recommendations. And then he broke apart the recommendations of things that are covered under the contract that we have with Down to Earth, that we need to give them feedback of what to do better or differently. And then a list of things that aren't covered under the contract that we may want to consider doing to enhance. We have access to him because Icon is our management company.
Yeah.
So they brought him in to do this, same way with the board. So I think that's a great example of the value that they bring. Plus, I don't know if you've had the chance to meet with Neri, with the new lifestyle director, quality people. So very, very high quality. So I commend Icon for bringing them in early, but a very favorable first impression.
Yeah, I was going to go back to the contracts question. That gives us other resources to use in contract negotiation when you can have an expert that's through a property management company. And additionally, have you met Phil yet? Has anybody met Phil?
I've not yet.
The full-time maintenance guy? So they brought him in. If you haven't seen him yet, you'll see him walking around Graybeard. He's done a fantastic job, and he's already gone through and gotten recommendations for areas that need to be cleaning. He's getting crews together to get us power washing estimates for a bunch of areas that no one even thought of. So I think having the span of a property management company is a good idea.
I wouldn't trust a maintenance man without Peter. He's got one.
Another question, if I may. What is your position with regards to resale transaction fees to help fund reserve?
I've got a good one, but do you want to?
So
I'm going to gauge the reaction off his.
Okay. So I think there's two perspectives, or three perspectives. One, should you have one, right? I actually think you should have one. We've invested in this community. We have great amenities, and I think it's not unexpected and not unheard of for that to be part of a buy-in fee, sort of to help fund the reserve, right? The third, so no fee. I'm in favor of a fee. The question is whether or not it's a static fee for all the homes, or is it variable based upon the price of the home. My perspective, and it's just one of them, is that it's a static fee, because what you're buying into is the common areas. We all share that regardless of the size of the home. So that's a perspective that I have. I'm not saying it's the only one we share. I think it's something the community should vote in on. But I do believe, and I personally believe, that it's static for everybody, just because we all have access to that stuff.
I like that approach. Thank you.
Well, let me respond to it really quick, so because otherwise we want to be fair. Yes, I also agree there should be a fee. And originally, I was all happy with the $7,500 fee that was originally proposed, not voted on yet by the community, but originally proposed. And the reason I was pleased with that is because Mark and I did the projections. That's about $300,000 a year towards a reserve fund that needs about $450,000 a year of funding. So it felt like, hey, we're paying for most of the reserve fund with the transfer fee. There's since been a lot of feedback from neighbors, which I think is fantastic. That's how we should be running things, that they think that fee is too high. And so now there's a new proposal that the board, those people, me included, will be looking at to potentially offer a different option on there, and then put it out for the vote of community. So what I'm in favor for is putting out two questions to the community. One, are you in favor of a fee? Yes, no. And assuming that passes, then what fee would you like? I personally have gotten myself comfortable through talking with neighbors of a percentage. I would propose 0.5%. And an $800,000 home, that's $4,000 on a $1.7 million sale price. It's, something else. I don't know, somebody that can do that.
It's more than that.
Yeah, more than that. Yeah. I think it works out to be about
8,500.
8,500. Thank you. I ain't the treasurer, But so that's where I'm at. I could be happy with any fee. I think when we look at the different communities, almost all of them have a fee. Some of the fees are around $3,500. I don't know if that's because they've been there for a long time and just haven't gone up with inflation. Some communities have a fee plus another administrative fee on top of it. I think Twin Eagles, when you add up all the fees together, it's closer to $14,000. I think Esplanade, Quarry are much higher. They're golf communities, so it's hard to do a comparison there. So I get that, but I do think that all of us, when we built our homes, or I don't know if you all, maybe some buy-in, I guarantee you a portion of that home price went to build the pickleball courts, the tennis courts, the clubhouse, and that was all done by the home sale price as well. So that's just where I'm at. I can live with anything, but I do think it's financially responsible for us to do that. Real quick, I wanted to get his, and then we'll come back.
Likely you guys have dealt with attorneys all the time, so in the future you'll be dealing with an HOA attorney, and the HOA attorney will be making certain recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is likely how we pursue GL for whatever deficiencies in dollars there were. A concerning question of a vision of how you would do that. If a HOA attorney recommended that we wait through a litigation process of 2 to 5 years to recoup certain dollar amounts in order to rebuild, fix, etc., what would be your tolerance for timeframes before you would address items that are currently lacking utility?
Yeah.
Such that we fix it and argue about who pays for it
Yeah.
later, especially if there may be safety concern issues with the operation of that.
Boy, that's a heck of a question. I feel like I should have
That's
written
my
that
core
down.
question.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I'll take, I gave you the two hard ones, so I'll take that. I think, again, without trying to dodge the question, it would obviously depend, right? So I think that's a good conversation. If you're talking about the bocce ball court, because my understanding, and this is very limited understanding, I've not been in depth on this, but I believe the bocce ball court has bad drainage, is what I've heard, and we're blaming that on GL. So we would like GL to fix it. I agree. I do not think it's feasible to wait 7 months or however long that's going to take to get it fixed. So if that's the particular example you're talking about, I do think that we got to make sure that we have amenities that we can enjoy as a community. And so maybe we fix it and then try to sue GL for the amount or something like that. But that would be my initial response. If there's something else that you're referring to, I'd have to look at those.
Well, as you're addressing that,
Yeah.
the safety one that would come up would be if you look at the tennis courts and you look at the lines, the nail pops are not infrequent. It's all of the lines. It's not just court 4 and 5 where there are drainage issues where you might have GL. It's literally the maintenance of the courts is why the nails are popping. My concern isn't the liability, although it should be for $1 million lawsuit. My concern is that if one of our neighbors or friends trips and has a life-changing event for them health-wise, I feel like our HOA has done a disservice to a neighbor and friend. And if you walk the courts, you might have that concern because you could see the nails, not just like once in a while. It's because it's not being maintained because the current premises. The HOA attorney has said if you touch it, you buy it, I guess. So therefore, we're not doing anything until we resolve the issue with GL, and my bet is it'll be 2 or 3 years. So that's why I asked the vision question on how long your patience would be for us to be able to use stuff, like the bocce courts and tennis.
Yeah, I think my patience will be limited, right? It's small, right? We should be able to use the amenities we have. The question is what do we have to do to hold the evidence, for lack of a better term, in a state that we can argue against it while we can make use of it. So I was out there the other day and Troon had their engineers out there looking at tennis courts. So people will disagree with this, but actually I had him put it in writing. He actually thought our tennis courts were maintained for where they are in really good shape. Okay. Not my words, his words. He's also come back up with some suggestions of what you can do prior to some of these things. So there might be some intermediate step. Maintenance has 2 different meanings in some cases, right? What level of maintenance? Is it that we're not going around and putting the nail pops back in, or we're not replacing the nails, not knocking things down? Or is it that the surface is not able to, you're tripping over the lines, even if they are nailed in? I would be in favor of finding some way to establish the state and get an agreed upon state. I think the engineering report should help us with that, provide the evidence. It's about $350,000 to put those courts back in place through Ritzman. I was on the committee that did the bid, but Troon also has some ideas about how to limit that too. So I would try and find a way that we could do it faster, but preserve the evidence so it can recover in court. So,
I live in between Jim Davey and Jeff, so it's in my best interest to get the bocce ball fixed.
They have put some recommendations in just the other day about some of the things. The awnings over top of the bocce, for example, are draining into the court, adding to the drainage issue. They could put awnings on the drain and push that away from the court. So there's some intermediate steps that might put a Band-Aid on it as your things that. So.
I had a question, back to the transfer fee. So for the transfer fee, just throw it out there, a lot of the communities do like a 2 or 3 or even a 4 quarters worth of fees. So that way it grows over time too, like as HOA fees go up over the years, that transfer fee does too, so that we don't have to keep changing it.
Oh,
Just, it is really a good way to get the reserves going. especially coming into this year, where we expect the real estate market to be much better. So that would go into capital contribution as well. My question is, being that you're on the board right now, you might have some insight into it. Do you know if they're getting that to go now on the ballot? Well, now that we have a vote coming up?
Yes, so there, so again, my understanding is that we had already, the board, not me, the prior board had already voted on the 7,500 based on the feedback that they've been getting on that particular amount. They've added it to the next agenda, which is October 27th, to revisit that. So we're going to either reaffirm the 7,500 or provide different options. I just told you where my head was at on that. And then that will go out to the community for a vote. And then as soon as we get that voted on by the community and it passes or fails, then we'll be able to start executing on it.
Good.
So we'll continue the conversation on the transfer fee, but this would apply to anything in the community that you felt was important to the community, but may have a PR issue in terms of people voting for it or against it, because it may appear at first to be a negative add to the community. I don't want to have to add a zoning partner fee in my house. So in my view, the reason people might vote against it, and I think we need 2/3 vote, or we need a lot, is because they may not really understand it well enough. So what would your approach be to explaining or getting the word out on things that at first glance may not sound like something you would support because it's going to cost you money or whatever, or it may affect your hours or whatever it is, but would be good for the community? Well, what would your approach be for that level of communication?
Yeah, I think that two things. One, I don't know if the whole community understands even what a capital reserve fund is. I mean, if they're not coming into, if they're not used to being in an HOA, they may not understand the concepts of having the capital reserve fund. What's it paying for? Why do we have to increase our dues at all? How can we offset the dues? So I think it's really part of my job as treasurer, or whoever the next treasurer is, to help educate, right? So that's part of, I think, my role on the board, or whoever the treasurer is, role on the board, to educate on these financial matters. So I think we should educate what it will be used for specifically, why it's in our best interest to have a strong capital reserve fund, why do we want to start funding it now, and why is it make sense for our dues to go up X% in order to pay for all of that. And ultimately the community has to vote on the increased dues. They have to vote on the increased reserve transfer fee, whatever that ends up being. So we've got to do a good job, I think, educating and make sure people are making an informed decision. So
to that end, one of the committees we wanted to do initially, or subcommittees, was a communication committee. And I think for things like this, that would be a perfect task for them, right? To put together the board's position, right? Why we're going to do the fee, what the fee is for, all the facts around it, but also then to represent the community. People that are for it, people that are against it, and put together a message that represents a big picture of what the community, and make sure that they have a way to get it out to everybody, right? Market it, right? Like, give them all the information, the pros, the cons, what it means for the community, and those who don't like it, and let them make a decision. But put together a packet that represents mostly everybody, right? And let people make an informed decision as opposed to just what you hear in Facebook and things of that nature.
I like the idea of a committee also, Louis, and hopefully enlisting people like Angela, who's a real estate professional, and I know there's many in our community who can personally speak to other communities like ours that have all of these amenities. We're essentially a club.
Right.
VT is a club, and we need to pay to get into this club besides just buying the home.
Yeah. We have so much expertise. Everybody's got a career, a successful career that they've done. They can contribute some way or the other, or we can tap into them for different information. We should make use of that. I think we should.
Back to the communications point, I think it's an excellent point. I was thinking like a deputy director of communications, et cetera, press secretary, if you will, with us being the recipients of that, the residents. And when Troy, you mentioned 160 areas that build this place, not that you have to answer this now, but what are those now? I might see a pool and a restaurant and a street, so
Yeah.
there's only three in my opinion. But I think knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And the more the next level of the board can do, in my personal and professional opinion, to educate the consumer, which is the resident, the owner, the better. And you make a great point. What is a reserve study?
Yeah.
I don't even know how the lights come on. That I might benefit or care, but I might not. So that would be helpful. And then you all could say, well, this was disclosed through Facebook, email, the app. You didn't read how the lights came on, but that information's been available, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that would be fantastic. And the old adage about a speech we all learned about in middle school, tell them you're going to tell them what you told them. I couldn't emphasize that enough. It's frequency and repetition in this world to make the accuracy of the information known.
If only we knew somebody that was really good at communicating and had a DJ. We'll have to think of that. Yeah.
The only thing I'd add to that is we have to make sure it's not just the board statement. It's everybody thinks their own facts. We just got to make sure we figure out a way to make sure it is factual and that it represents everybody's voice.
Yeah, even like the survey, 82% felt this way. That's the majority, or that was enough. I think those facts, frequency and repetition over and over will really help to unify the coalition.
Yes, I agree.
I have a question for you. Since you've been looking at the operating budget or whatever was in place, when you go through that, are there items that just jump out at you that you want to look at? Like if there's 40 line items, obviously you don't want to dig down into the weeds, but if there's several things that have kind of popped out to you.
Well, we are going to look at every single line item when we're doing the 2026 budget because we want to make sure that we have everything accounted for and understand where the discrepancies are and things like that. Early on, I'll admit, again, being new to the HOA, I was surprised by the legal bills. But I've been told that going through a transition, we talked about a lot of the issues with GL and trying to make them think that's not unusual, but it stood out to me when I looked at it. Clearly the big ticket items, the gather number that we're paying was a little surprising to me early on. I know that's something we're negotiating on. It's a very complex concept, having a very nice restaurant inside of a gated community. There's some financial considerations to go along with it that is currently underway. And down to earth is a big line item that we had to understand. Those things stood out to me when I looked through the budget, and those are some of the areas that we focused on to make sure we understood. Obviously, it stood out to Mary, and that was one of the first things she did was look at the down to earth contract and understand what's going on there. Had some savings as we went through that. But I think those are the areas that stand out. I think hopefully next year, the legal fees won't be as much because we're through a lot of the transition. We had the Epic Reserve study we had to pay for this year. Wasn't in the budget originally, but that's a line item. We're not going to have that next year. And then, we'll have some other expenses next year that we didn't spend enough on bocce ball maintenance. So things like that will go up next year as we look at those budget line items. So.
I'm just curious, I'm not sure if you know this or not, but the down to earth budget, for instance, before we moved here, we lived in Bonita Springs in a community.
Okay.
And down to earth had the contract for that community.
They have a lot, yeah.
And people were very unhappy
Yeah.
with what they were doing, so they got rid of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if the new company that's doing it is any better or not, but it was, sometimes, why did I do that?
Yeah, I tell you what, if they don't cut that damn grass out there to the lawnmower,
The bringing in
Mark and I are gonna do it. No, but I hear you, and I know that's been a conversation, and I think that with any of these vendors, you gotta hold them accountable, right? And if they're not being held accountable, they're not making their end bargain, you go get a new one. And so I do think that's why we need to rely on ICON to be on them, is making sure that they're holding up their agreement. I joked about the grass mowing because I got like 4 calls on that yesterday. I told Lisa, what's wrong with the grass? I don't even take the dog for a walk that often, I guess.
We're losing our dogs.
But apparently we do migrate over to a every other week cycle. Probably too early this year, and it also came right after they did a fall fertilizer treatment, and so that made the grass go higher. So yeah, things like that, if that keeps happening, we'll have to look at. I know there is at least one other vendor that they've started to look at as an alternative. I keep saying they because it doesn't feel like I'm on the board yet, but so yeah, that'll be something that I think the new board will have to look at if we continue to have challenges with the current vendor.
I have a question.
Yeah, this is Lewis's questions.
So everyone asks you, you know, what your expectations and plans are for the community. Do you have any expectations or plans that you would like to see the community be involved to help you make your job easier, and how soon can we get involved?
We actually talked about that a while back. You know, how can we help, right? Can we help with maintenance? Can we help do a cleanup day? Can we do something? I've actually been told that sometimes that might be a negative too. We might be exposing ourselves, but yes.
But I really wasn't, I didn't really mean it that way. I guess what I meant was committees, et cetera, like
Committees,
that,
yeah.
to help you so that you don't have to go out and do some of maybe the research.
No, absolutely. I mean, we proposed a bunch of committees. Michelle gave us some information. Michelle gave us some information that was not correct, so we had to go back to the starting point.
Yes,
I also think that the timing of it was wrong.
yes.
While we wanted a lot to happen, the neighborhood was just in transition from one property manager to the, from the board to the HOR board. So I don't think the timing was right. We're just resetting everything. We're trying to get everything stable from what we can build upon. I think we're at that point. We have enough information now. And I think now that we have the survey done, there's a lot of really good information in there about everything. I wasn't aware that the gym was too small for everybody, even though I go to the gym almost every day. But it makes sense now. I see at times it's really busy. I wasn't aware that Gather was so popular, right? And I wasn't aware that so many people wanted music. There's lots of areas we can add. I didn't know that the mahjong tables were too small. I do. So there's lots of things that we're starting looking at, and I think that we should do that. I think we have people that have interest in the club rooms. We have interest in the kiln room, which I didn't know. I knew we had, but I never seen it used.
I keep trying to go in there and it's blocked.
It's great, it's great, and it works, and it's
It
vended.
works now.
It's definitely.
So I do think it's probably time for that, especially with 5 members on the board, that they can also be available as opposed to just 3 trying to juggle what was there. So I would like to see that.
Thank you.
And I'll just give it a shot. He's not here, but Mike Bernhard, I think on the live side, he's been saying very detailed notes on the swimming pool systems and the fountains. And I don't know where he gets this information, if he used to be a fountain guy or what, but very, very helpful. And because Neary then takes that and then she can have that conversation with the vendor. So I think he would just share, you know, what are you observing? Hopefully not in a really mean Facebook post, but in a nice note to Neary or the board as to what you're observing, what your thoughts are on it to fix it. That's what I like about Mike's. He's very detailed as to what we could do to improve it, and that's something for Icon to work with.
So I'll share something with Mike. I've known Mike for over 20 years. I didn't know he lived here. And the night they opened the club, we're sitting there, we're walking around with our appetizers, and Andrew tells me to go sit down someplace. So I go sit down, and Mike's sitting at the table. I didn't know he lived here. So he was one of my clients. He ran national service for Whirlpool and a bunch of other companies. So he knows this stuff in detail. He wants the help, but he's frustrated too.
Yes.
He's very frustrated because he's ready to go and then pulls back because we pull the rug out from under his feet. So I'd like to be able to engage people like that.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Troy, you just said something, I don't know if you were being facetious, you said you got 4 phone calls about the grass.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Is that something?
Text phone, yeah.
So some communication, is that something that should be directed to you, or should we as residents direct it to the management company? Because that would help,
Yeah.
get a lot of stuff off your plate, you don't have to feel these calls.
It's true. I joked with Lisa this morning. I'm like, why in the hell are they calling me about the grass? But the other side of it is if I know you and we're friends, I don't care if you send me I mean, nobody asked me, nobody that I didn't know texted me. It was the people I know. But I think it would be faster to go to Icon and I sent it to Neri and I said, hey, I'm sure you're getting this too. If I'm getting calls, you are too. So, but yeah, that would be the appropriate.
And the other reason, because my wife and I have been in, this is, I think, our 5th HOA.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, she's up north and she's in a transition board now, and she said, I'm gonna have a target on my back. Target's this big. But the point is, everybody if they have a problem with the builder, they're contacting the board. They're not contacting the builder. And I think it takes a lot off your plate, and at the same time, let the public know. If you've got a problem with it, contact management,
Yeah.
get off our back.
Yeah, so Terry, to that end, running call centers and things like that, having people self-report, self-help, know how to and who to call is a really big thing, right? Because it takes it off of his plate, my plate, or
Right.
everybody's plate. I was talking to Neri the other day, and about 2 weeks ago, I was playing with something, just being a tech background. QR code. Simple QR code, you've seen those everywhere. Branded Valencia trails on the different placards and things of that nature. I have one that I can actually click on, it'll tell me the area, the community I'm in, it'll tell me what you can select from the issue, it'll send an email to an address. So I've talked to Neri about something like that, and Icon's got a work order system. And it would be nice to be able to do something that simple so that instead of calling Troy, you could actually just click on it with your phone. We're all walking around with our phones, if so. And it would go to the right location. And then on the other side of it, be able to have it visible that it's in the location, what the status is, and what the expectation of time.
And then you can give them a 2 to 4 hour window within which they can expect something
exactly.
to.
And I
Like would show up.
Yeah. And that is the right way to do it. And I was joking before, but I'm aware of the grass now. So, there is value in having a direct line. And right now between Lewis, Mark, who's on the finance committee, and Greg, who's on the finance committee, and the board, I'm the only one of all those people that's actually on social media. So I might be the target now because, but at least I get to peruse and see what's on people's minds that way as well.
And I will say that I've probably put in more work orders than most people. Because I'm walking around the dog park or something like that and people say something, and instead of just telling them to go to GL or GRS, I will just do it right there. Yeah, so.
Mark?
Yeah, assuming we raise funds for improvements separate from the reserve, I heard you say maybe expand the fitness center, but let's say assume we raise, pick a number, $1 million, $2 million, what would you want to spend that money on?
Yeah. So one of the things too that Mark and I have talked about and that we'll be talking to the board about when we do the budget for next year. Right now we have the operating budget. Technically it's a zero balance budget, right? What do we need to run the place? We have the capital reserve fund, which you can only use for the things that we have when you have to replace them or fix the roof. We don't have any extra money for any new stuff that people come up with a great idea. I'm not endorsing this idea necessarily. I don't think it's a bad idea, but I've heard somebody say, hey, why don't we add some exercise equipment on the path around the lake to give people something to do as their exercise. I've heard about expanding the weight room. Probably could use another bocce ball court at some point. How are we going to pay for all of that? So one of the things that I would like to propose is that we set aside a capital improvement fund, not necessarily fund, but a cordoned off part of the budget. So we have money available to do the next thing and have that then available. If we don't spend it next year, it can grow to the next year and we can tackle some bigger projects. That said, I think again, my point of view is what I'm more familiar with. Obviously, bigger mahjong tables has come up, but the pickleball courts, there's only doors on some of the pickleball courts. That's an area that I think might enhance it a little bit without too much of a spend. That was one area that we've talked about for a while.
So it's a tough thing to do, right? So let's use a dog park, for example. There might be a feature in a dog park that we want to fund from the HOA, not proposing it. But most of the people don't use the dog park. It's actually a very small percentage of people. So how do you invest in that and show value to the rest of the community? Right? So one of the questions we did ask in the survey is, what amenities do you think added more value to your home? Right? So one way to get around that is to say, if you invest in a dog park, statistics around the area shows it increases property value. So it helps someone, and I'm using a dog park, say, okay, it might be worth investing $1 or $2 in this because it makes my home price go up if I was to sell it. So I think we need to look for ways to sell investment in other areas of the community to everyone, not just those who use it, right? Because you said if we wanted to change all the bocce courts to go east-west, or they go east-west now, right?
North-south,
They go north, they wouldn't turn, everything else is the other way. So if we had to do that, what's an interest for everybody else? Well, if it changes property values for everybody, if it shows an interest, it's gotta add value to everybody or to a majority of the people to be able to get it through. So,
But,
yeah.
question, so I believe the homeowners will vote on the budget each year, right?
Mhm.
Right. So certain things like that could go into the budget, and when you join a club, even if you don't use the tennis courts, you have to pay for the whole, that's what your dues pay for. So as part of the budget, there are going to be things on there that I don't know about.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I'm not gonna tell you, but I'm not voting for line 17A, as long as the budget overall feels good. And again, I think it's education, but I do think we should spend money on where most of the people could get the benefit. But there are things that I'm not ever gonna use, that craps table or the poke table, but it's part of the space and I'm happy to be here, so guess what, you have to pay.
There's 1% of the community that does not use gatherings. And they're paying for it every day.
Yeah,
So, there's 1% of the community that does not use gatherings.
That person.
Do we know
We
their
did
numbers?
survey, we did survey 2 people. So yeah, there's gonna be things that we all accept, right? But we're gonna vote on, we're gonna ask the committee, we're gonna ask everybody, and then some of the things, if we have to change them, we actually have to get 2/3 vote to make a change too. So,
Yeah, and I'm gonna say, I don't know, so maybe somebody else does, but I don't know the answer to this. I actually don't know if the community votes on the budget, or if the community would only vote if we increase the dues. So,
They don't vote on that.
budget.
They don't vote on, the board is the only one that controls the budget.
yeah, that's the way I understand it. Because the budget, you gotta pay stuff to run it, we don't need to vote, because like you said, we don't want to have a 2/3 vote on this line item.
Right.
But if we gotta raise the dues to pay for the budget, then everybody's gotta vote on that. If they don't vote on it, we gotta lower the budget down to the current dues. So that's where you gotta make your case as to why we're increasing.
but that's where communication.
basically, we explain it.
Yeah, that's where communications are.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I have a question on the statute of limitations for what GL has to fix.
Mm.
And the thing that really bugs me are the sidewalks. They're gross. I thought to myself, well, maybe I would get a contractor to come out and ask him what he would charge me to fix the sidewalks here. Because, I grew up in a big city. I grew up in San Francisco. The sidewalks there, if you don't mind the poop, they don't get all stained and gross and stuff like that. I think they must use a better quality concrete. And I don't know if they have a finishing thing for it, but
I think
these are bad, right by the lawn after it waters.
Water.
They get
It's
black.
water.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it, right? I think there's the quality of the concrete plus the chemical or the nutrients in the water and all the fertilizers and things like that.
But I didn't know if GL and Benita had the same issue.
I'm actually not educated on that topic,
Okay.
so that's something I know the sidewalks have been a hot topic, but I'm just not sure. And it's a good question.
I was just wondering, I was away all summer, I'm gonna admit it, so I missed out on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But with this icon, was there ever?
It was really hot.
Yeah,
So, yeah, maybe.
But like, so you lose touch sometimes,
Yeah.
and then icon came in.
Yeah.
Was there ever a little notice that said, if you have a problem with grass, please contact this person? Or if you have a problem with the tennis court, contact this person? Because it would kind of prevent scapegoating and bullying and problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I think the
complaints-
new site has contact information. If you've seen the new site app, they have contact, a list of contact information. I mean, in case of wondering where to go, always go to Neary, who's our property manager. She would be the point of contact, but there might be other contacts in other areas. But yeah, you're right, we gotta get comfortable with using it.
Yeah, the new app is great. You know, there's questions, frequently asked questions. One is landscape, another one is, you know, whether it be a sports issue. The new app is fabulous.
It can get even better too, there's the thought, yeah, we can.
Just another thought, like on Neary and the app, certainly better, making great progress. You know, is there a way maybe to have push notifications on the app? So like weekly, remember Neary's your person, remember Bill's in charge and get down to earth. You know, anything we can do, because we're all busy, we're all juggling on calls, we're involved on the planet 50 plus years. You know, it's challenging.
Yeah.
And I might say to Stephanie or Louis or Gary, you know, what was that person's name again? I knew we just talked about it, but that's all normal. So anything we can do to maximize frequency and repetition and communications available, you know, maybe the communications person is always on Facebook once a week, publishing this stuff over and over and over.
So I believe that when the app is fully mature, that you can elect for push notifications for the groups that you're interested in. So if it's about the property manager or something like that, if it's about board events, if it's about the committees, so you can subscribe to that and you'll be notified. But it's not there yet. It's just not there. But it's a great idea. But I think they started putting out the notifications, the email blasts.
Yeah.
And that's where they put out Neary's email address and things of that nature. And I knew that now that they're fully staffed up there, you can just go and see Belle is at the front desk and report anything to her too.
I want to be cognizant of time, so you guys have been great. This has been like the best questions I think we've had here, so thank you. Yeah, Jeff.
Just to follow up on Lisa's first question, and consistent with your understanding, Louis, getting back to the issue of the delegation of authority to negotiate contracts. If elected to the board and it were put to a vote to the board to continue with the process for the practice of having the delegation of authority resting with the office of the president, would you vote to reaffirm that, or would you vote to revoke it? And I'd like to hear an answer from both of you.
So I would like to see exactly what it's set up now, but I would be in favor of contracts being negotiated by the person who is that expert in that area, who's got an interest in that area.
Regardless of which, if it
Regardless
was
of
one
all-
different
Yeah,
members?
regardless of the role, right?
Okay.
So if we're doing an insurance thing, maybe Troy's got better information on negotiating insurance contract. Like I said, if it's a service issue, if it's a software issue, it's things like that, maybe I have better expertise. So I would prefer to do that.
Yeah, 'cause it's not just negotiating. The authority that was granted was to enter into, terminate, amend,
Right,
complete authority over the contract.
right.
So you're saying that the authority should lie with the person with the expertise, which I understand.
Yeah, and I think, it's obviously voted on by the board, but I think the initial contact or the relationship should be with the person who's got that expertise, because they can understand, because what we're really negotiating is the business terms.
Look, can we
Legal issues,
clarify that point,
things.
because what I think I'm hearing you say, there's a delegation of authority that says a single person can do everything without the board having final approval.
That is correct.
That wasn't my
That's the
understanding.
way it's.
What you people have been, and I don't think it's been the practice. It may be the delegation that's in place, but that's not what's being done.
Right.
And I'm interested because I like what's being done. That is true. An expert negotiates the contract, but then it goes before the whole board. They explain what they negotiated, and the whole board approves it. So we should change the delegation, in my opinion, if that's what it says today.
That's what I'm asking,
Right.
what the vote
Right.
would be.
Because they did vote, it was reported by the board that there was a vote taken by, at the time, the 3 board members to give authority to 1 board member, the president, to negotiate and do decision-making on the contract.
Yes,
In what was the phrasing,
execute.
to execute, but because of time, time and effort, it was easier for 1 person
Yeah.
to manage it as opposed to
Yeah.
3.
So I'll commit that I will look into that topic much more thoroughly because from my understanding, she was taking point and getting feedback from the board before she
Can
signed
I
it.
redirect the question to how will you approach it?
Yeah.
Forward?
Yeah, that's how I would, and again, I think, I think we've all, probably a lot of us that negotiated contracts, it's always better to have the person negotiating your contract to have the authority to do so. If you're sitting across from somebody trying to negotiate a contract and you don't have the authority to say yes, well, then they're not going to take your no. So I think that's an Oprah. Never take no from someone not authorized to say yes. I learned that from Oprah. I think that it's good to have it, but nobody has total authority. We're not going to commit ourselves to financial commitments without having some input from the board.
I think for all the contracts, we utilize ICON. They have the most expertise, more so than any of the board members. So I think, even though it may seem like one person is unilaterally doing something, I think first and foremost, ICON is the expert in their weighing in on what they
And it's
do.
interesting because the one thing that I heard from ICON when I started here recently, so this is in the past week, was their observation was the contracts that are on the books were not negotiated in favor of the community. That was their observation, not the ones that have been renegotiated, but the ones that are still out there. So I think that was telling, that I think that there was an opportunity that maybe GRS on their way out the door when they had the board and had the power of the pen, they did not necessarily do everything in our best interest, and so that's what we need to outline. Was there another
Did that answer your question, Jeff?
I think so. Go ahead.
Well, it's kind of a tie-up to some of this, so that when the board, or if you have one expertise person is trying to negotiate a contract and everything like that, is there an attorney working with that board member at the same time? And is it ICON's attorney, or is it an attorney that the HOA hires? Or how does that work? Because then after the contract is negotiated, would you not want legal to make sure that all of the things are kosher in that contract before it would go to the board to be voted on?
With respects to which attorney it is, I'd have to say, I believe the board probably has.
Yeah, the board has, the HOA, I should say, the HOA has an attorney that that's the legal expenses that I was referring to. I'm actually not sure if that HOA attorney actually reviews the gather contract, the down to earth contract before we sign off on it. That's a good question. I just don't know the answer.
But typically, what I would suggest, what I would do is I would negotiate the business terms, right? What do we want? What services do we want? What fees do we want? Things of that nature. And then express to the lawyer what protections we think we need, but have him advise us what protections we really need, right?
I think
People stay in your lane.
I think I heard something really clear from you guys, but you may not have actually said the wording around it.
Okay.
I believe it's that the subject matter expert does the negotiating, but then you would each say, bring it back to the board, we hear what you say, we ratify what you've negotiated, and then you sign the contract, right?
I think so. I don't know about the actual nuances of that.
No, I mean,
but
this is a go
the
forward.
concept
This is a go forward
yeah.
scenario.
Yeah.
And the board that you would be on,
Yeah.
does someone negotiate and then come back to the board for approval and then sign, just to keep it really simple.
So what I would
That would
say,
make sense.
and the way it's worked for me in the past, is prior to negotiating, I talk to the rest of the team that's interested, right? Figure out what it is we want from the contract. So it's not just one person representing everybody. So you have everybody's interest, and then you use your expertise in that area to negotiate on behalf of the group. And you take that back to the group and you go back and forth.
So it comes back to the
Yeah.
board,
It should-
does the
it
board
should
then
start-
vote,
Absolutely.
then the signature?
Yeah.
That's where I think people are getting
And for
confused.
the record,
Yes.
and for the record, I don't know if that's not how it's taking place today.
Well, that's.
My perception would be that's how it's happening today.
I would separate you would say approve it by the board before signing it.
I would
Yeah.
prefer that.
Got it, I'm not going backwards.
Yeah.
I can shed a little light on that. I was on board in the prior community before here.
A GL community.
GL, and it was after turnover, so I'm very familiar. Typically what we did was the board would maybe designate one person, like you said, the person most apt for that particular task. Negotiate the contract, get all the facts in the contract and so forth, and then bring it to the board, because you have to vote on it. The board does have to vote on it. For attorney input, if it was a big contract, like for instance, landscaping, yes, I would give it to the attorney and say, please review this, we want to make sure. Because when GRS was, there was the same case in the prior community, GRS was a management company, they worked for the builder.
Yeah.
So the builder had a lot of different wants and needs of what they were doing, and they weren't necessarily paying what we would be paying as an HOA. So yeah, I always had that reviewed, and it's a good practice. You know, smaller ones, not such a big deal, because you don't want to go to the added legal expenses.
Yeah.
Also, usually the board designates one person to contact with the attorney for the reason of you don't want residents, you don't want people just randomly contacting the attorney, because that's when the bills really go up.
Yeah.
So that would be a good, practice moving forward. I don't know if that's being done now or not, but that's definitely something, because we really only want to take the really important things. So.
Yeah, that's great.
One thing to note about all that as well, given the structure of the board where there are only 3 people before, it's very difficult for them to have a conversation about anything. With 5 people, you can actually have a conversation while negotiating during the process.
Without it being a formal.
Without it being a
report.
Right.
Yes, understood.
Ivan, this has been really great. Thank you for coming. If anyone has more questions, please stay. They're here as long as you want them. They told me nobody would eat anything, but I know they're wrong, because I know you're gonna start eating as soon as this is over. Take some chips home with you, but stay as long as you'd like to ask more questions, but thank you both so much.
Thank you. Thank you.